Put on some old sad bastard music, see if I care.
I don't want to hear old sad bastard music.
Listen, just listen for a minute.
The Funhouse.
Hi, Richard Kingsman with you, and this is a special edition of The Funhouse. Today marks the 50th anniversary of the passing of one of music's most iconic figures. On July the 3rd, 1971, Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, died suddenly in Paris. A very quick and small funeral was organised by his girlfriend, with Morrison being buried in the city's most famous cemetery, Père Lachaise. In 1991, I went to Père Lachaise for a special live broadcast on Triple J. It coincided with the 20th anniversary of Morrison's death, and speculation about what actually happened to him was still high. Interest in the Doors' music has never really waned either over the last 50 years. So, in the Funhouse, I want to take you back to that strange day at Père Lachaise to celebrate a unique musician and poet and the fans that have hung on to the band's legacy for so long. This is the first time we've aired this special since it was first broadcast 30 years ago. So here it is on Double J. Well, good evening to all the Triple J listeners back in Australia. Richard Kingsman with you tonight, and a special program direct from Paris on the eve of the 20th anniversary of Jim Morrison's death. It's a sunny lunchtime. I'm standing at the entrance of one of the world's most celebrated cemeteries. It's the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. The story behind this cemetery is as interesting as the people who are buried here. It was built after the French Revolution in the late 1700s by Napoleon I. Because it was far away from the city centre, Parisians remained pretty much uninterested in the place, for the simple reason that it was just too far for them to hold their traditional funeral processions. It wasn't until a writer named Balzac came onto the scene that interest in the cemetery escalated. He came up with the idea of burying his main characters in Père Lachaise when they died. As the popularity of his novels increased, so too did the visitors. Since then, it's become a star-studded graveyard. Chopin is here, writers like Oscar Wilde and Marcel Proust are here, painters like Pissarro and Seurat, actress Sarah Bernhardt, and singer Edith Piaf. The cemetery itself is huge. It's 160 acres in size. I arrived here this morning by the metro, the Parisian Underground, and as I walked up out of the station, I immediately saw the very lengthy wall of Père Lachaise on my left, with some of the taller crypts peeking up over the top of the wall. At the moment, as I said, I'm standing at the main entrance, looking up the stone path towards the hill. There's trees along the path and a long line of graves with very ornate headstones. It's as beautiful as what everyone told me it was going to be. Well, 20 years ago tomorrow, an American singer, songwriter and poet was buried here at Père Lachaise. He was only 27 when he died in Paris, supposedly of a heart attack, and over the last 2 decades, he's become the cemetery's main tourist attraction. People from all over the world come here to see his grave, to hang out at his grave, to drink at his grave, to smoke at his grave. Of course, I'm talking of Jim Morrison. And tomorrow, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 people are going to converge on this place. Today, I'm going to be speaking with some of the fans who come out here regularly or are just passing through for the day. It's going to take me a few minutes to actually get to Morrison's grave, and there I'll be meeting up with someone who can tell us more about Morrison's plot. In the meantime, let's kick off the show with The Doors' second single and their biggest hit, Light My Fire. Light My Fire by The Doors. Well, that song has given me enough time to get here to Morrison's grave. I do actually have a map of the cemetery in hand, but I found that I didn't really need it to find this place. All I needed to do was look for the very well-marked graffiti which points me in the direction of Jim. Anyway, here I am now. I have Michelle from Texas with me. She's been living in Paris for the last 2 years. Michelle, how often do you come out here to Père Lachaise?
I come here 5 times a week.
That many?
Yeah. I'm doing a photographic project on the cemetery and this grave right now. So.
All right. What sort of what sort of project? Specifically about Morrison or about the cemetery?
Well, it started out the cemetery, and Morrison's now such a big story in the cemetery, but it's an art project.
So it's not for a Texas magazine or anything like that?
No, I wish somebody were paying me to do this.
Right. So five times a week you come out here, and at the moment, I mean, there's only about, 20, 25 people?
Yeah.
So you take lots of photos of them?
Yeah, a lot of them, the grave, the light, the cat.
And they come from all over Europe?
All over the world, not just Europe. I mean, every country imaginable.
And how old are they? Are they all usually within the same age bracket?
No, every age. I'm an original Doors fan. I see plenty of people here that were original Doors fans.
So you were living in Texas when the band was together?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And were you into the music at that point of your life?
I was 17. I had the poster of him in my bedroom. I was driving a car and listening to my AM radio and listening to Light My Fire on Friday night,
So the perspective that you have of sitting out here must be, I don't know, how do you think it's different to what other people see when they come to this gravesite?
I don't know. I came here the first 12 years ago, and so I've seen the grave in a lot of different conditions. And so my perspective is different in that respect. And then I've come here so much, literally hundreds of times.
Well, over the last 12 years, how much has this site changed?
Well, it started out as an unmarked grave. There's nothing, not a stone. Maybe there was just a little plaque. I don't even know, that disappeared. And in 81, you had a stone and the bust put on. The bust disappeared almost 3 years ago in May of 88. And so then you had just the old stone getting more worn away. And then in December of 1990, you had this new stone put on with the new plaque with the Greek inscription.
So that was just last year that this new stone was put here?
Yeah, right before Christmas, the 19th of December.
Already there's numerous pieces of graffiti on the front of it.
It's disgusting. I don't know why anybody would want to write their name on somebody's grave. And then take a picture of it.
Yeah.
Tito from Milano,
Did that make you angry when you started to see these pieces of graffiti come up?
Oh, it didn't at first, on the old stone, because there was so much graffiti and it was so damaged. But when you think about it, it was really beautiful when it was first put on, and it was just desecrated for 10 years. That's all this is desecration. The people around here, like this crypt over here, the family's been here since 1835. They're really horrified. Their crypt is completely ruined. The door's been broken off. There's graffiti inside and outside. This whole part of the cemetery, has graffiti on it. A nice French cemetery where alcohol is forbidden and music and dancing on graves.
Everyone seems to like to have a drink while they're out here as well, or a few of the people who visit.
I talked to a German guy, and he said, well, you always, when you're drinking, pour some on the ground for the dead. And I said, well, do you do that inside your house too? And he goes, oh, no, just outside you remember the dead.
So it's a real ritual, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Getting back to the plaque, the new plaque that's been up since last year, the inscription down the bottom, it is Greek?
Yes, and I'm not sure, I don't know how to say Greek. I say it very badly, kataton amona itoi, which means according to the spirit or the demon within himself, something like that, or against the spirit within himself, or he chases his demon. I'm not sure of the exact translation. I'm still working on it.
Whose idea was it that inscription go up on the new plaque?
I don't know whose idea it was, but I understand the father paid for this stone and bought the plaque.
That seems a bit strange given his attitude towards his family while he was alive.
He was into the ancient Greeks, and I guess Dad decided to give him a tribute.
Most asked question from people all over the world who come here is...
Is he dead?
They don't voice it out loud. Well, not so much is he dead, but is he really here?
Oh, yeah, he's here.
You really believe he's here?
Yeah, because for one thing, the French wouldn't put up with this if there wasn't a body in here. They have begged, from what I understand, the family to take this back to the United States for 20 years and deal with it there. If this were just a memorial, they'd say, look, we got better things to do with our time than guard this, Also, I've checked the concession, and there's a body in there. So if it's not him, somebody else is in there. But, when you think about it, in reality, he's not dead in the sense of he lives on, and his music and his poetry, and so he's not dead to a lot of people. You know, he's alive. He's the young lion, you know, the famous photograph, you know, always will be.
Okay, Michelle, thanks for your time for the moment. We'll no doubt chat again soon. You're listening to Triple J. Richard Kingsmore with you, live from Père Lachaise in Paris and Jim Morrison's gravesite. In just a moment, I'm going to be talking with John Densmore, the Doors drummer, about his feelings on the scene here at the gravesite. But in the meantime, let's get back to some Doors music. This is a great song, Love Me Two Times. That was Love Me Two Times by The Doors. Well, online now from his home in Los Angeles, I have with me the drummer from The Doors, John Densmore. John spent the last 10 years writing a book about his life with Jim Morrison and The Doors, which has just come out. In the opening chapter of his book, John recalls his feelings upon seeing Morrison's grave at Père Lachaise. John, from the point of view of a member of The Doors, what did you see when you came out here?
Always there's a few people there sort of trying to recreate some kind of love-in of the 60s, playing guitars and drinking wine and whatever, singing songs. It's really something.
Is that sad?
Well, yes and no. It was a sweet time. On the other hand, some of those folks are living in the past, too. You know, can't go back, but one can be re-inspired by those times.
It's a fairly amazing scene out at the cemetery, isn't it, around Morrison's grave?
Yes. When I was in England, several people asked me if I was going to go to Jim's grave on July 4th, 20th anniversary or whatever. I said, I will definitely not be there because there's going to be hordes of people, you know.
Will that day mean very much to you? Do you think you're going to stop on that day and think about a lot of things?
Well, sure, you know. I mean, there's no way I couldn't love those three guys, having gone through that with them, you know. Robbie, Ray, and Jim.
John Densmore speaking online today from his home in Los Angeles. We'll be crossing back later to John in the program. Michelle is still with me. You've just heard what John Densmore had to say. What do you think people get out of coming to Morrison's grave?
Oh, I think they're trying to be close to their hero, you know, touch him in some way, feel his presence, that sort of thing. You know, other people just tell their friends back home they saw it.
Do you think they find that when they come here?
I don't know. You know, some people, yeah.
The majority, though, do you think they're disappointed?
Yeah, I think they're disappointed because it's just a grave, you know. I mean, I don't know what they expected, but I heard one girl say the Berlin Wall was better than this. You know?
So what do you think? I don't know, it's hard to categorise people, but do you think these people have anything in common? Are they sort of looking for something that's lacking in their own lives and hoping to find it by coming here?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think they have the music in common. Doors music, a lot of music in common. I mean, it's your mass subculture right now. You know, young people and music. And Morrison sort of personifies all that, even though his music happened a long time ago.
Is this something that's typical about them, though? Are they kind of lost?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think people here are particularly lost. I mean, I think these guys sitting next to us are like American GIs, and a lot of people on vacation, a lot of rich people, a lot of poor people, you know, come by. People from LA over there.
What sort of strange events have you seen happen out here?
Oh, it's just like hanging around the metro 5 times a week, you know. You see people asking for money, and you see people get irritated with each other, that sort of thing. But you see a lot of very nice things. People come and they share their food and play the guitar and maybe trying to recreate what they think is the atmosphere of the 60s, you know, where everybody's a brother and sister. So.
Any sort of perverse events that you can remember?
Now you seem to be steering me towards a...
Yeah. Well, what's some of the stranger behaviour patterns you've seen out here?
Oh, yesterday I saw a guy burn some hair on the grave in some sort of ritual. You know.
His own hair?
I don't know.
It was just like a crop of hair.
Yeah, he had it all wrapped up and burned it. I saw somebody else burn a postcard of Rimbaud, the French writer. You know, so the people do their own little rituals. I've seen an artist make a piece of art and put it on the grave, you know, with stones and sticks and that sort of thing.
Do you ever ask them, because you take photos of nearly everyone who comes up and does something in front of the grave, do you ever ask them why they're doing it?
Oh, yes and no. I mean, if I'm taking a photo, I don't want to be a participant. But sometimes I do, because they have really interesting stories, you know, like the people making the work of art were Czechoslovakians, you know, and they came to see Jim Morrison's grave, so...
Okay, Michelle, thanks once again for your time. You're listening to Triple J, coming direct from the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, where we're broadcasting this Paris lunchtime from Jim Morrison's gravesite. Let's take a track now from the Doors' third album, Waiting for the Sun. This song is called Yes, the River Knows. Please believe me. One of the stronger songs to come from the Doors' third album, Waiting for the Sun. It's a song you don't often hear, too, from the band. It's called Yes, the River Knows. That third album, Waiting for the Sun, was actually described by the band as their difficult third album. Didn't receive very good reviews either when it came out, but it did contain the song Hello, I Love You, which was their first hit across the Atlantic. In August of 1968, the Doors went to Europe and England for the first time to play. Morrison apparently dazzled the English press with his charisma, but his substance abuse was seriously affecting the band's live shows. In Amsterdam, for example, Morrison never made it on stage. That afternoon, someone came up to Jim in the street, gave him a little block of hash, and Jim popped the whole thing in his mouth. Later, that night at the venue, he collapsed and had to be taken to hospital. The band's keyboard player, Rayman Zurich, filled in for Jim on vocals, and apparently he did pretty well too, judging by the reviews. Anyway, back here at Père Lachaise in Paris, we're standing right next to Jim Morrison's gravesite. I have with me now two English people, Rick and Julia. First of all, Julia, to you. Did you know what this place was going to be like before you came out today?
No, I didn't know what to expect, really, no. It's just kind of nice. I just kept thinking what it would be like if you had died and you had people sitting on your grave for the rest of you, you know. I don't know. Just makes you think about what happens when you die.
It depends how famous you are, doesn't it, Julia?
Yeah. I mean, not many people are going to have people sitting on their graves every night.
I'll sit on your grave if you want.
You probably die before me, Rick. So.
No, I won't. I'll outlive you. I'll have
We'll
to.
see.
What about the behaviour of the people? They're some of them are sitting around drinking.
Well, some of them seem quite happy, sort of mellow. Sad, I don't know. But they seem to be having a wild party as well.
Yeah, some of them are just sat around drinking beer. I mean, when we first got here, I heard people, like, smashing bottles, maybe, and I didn't think that was cool either.
Is it something that you could see yourself doing, coming out here?
No, not really. I think I've probably seen it once. I suppose if I was in Paris again and I wanted something to do of an afternoon, I might get some beers and just... I mean, it's a nice place. It's a nice atmosphere, you know. It's really... I've never seen a graveyard like this, to be honest. Yeah, it's nice. I could sit here for a bit, I think.
Does it make you curious, seeing the people that are here today, curious to find out exactly why they're here?
I'm sure a lot of people come here just because they think it's cool to come here.
Why did we come here?
Well, just because, I don't know.
I suppose...
I came out of curiosity.
Yeah, I think I came out of curiosity, you know.
I got a bit disappointed when I first got here because I thought, for some stupid reason, I thought there'd be no one here. And then I saw all these people, I thought, oh, God, you know, I wanted to see it all by myself, not with 100 other people.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that, you know, 20 years after his death or whatever, you know, he can command so many people to just, like, turn up at his grave and just sit there, you know. That is really... It's really strange.
Are they sane for doing it, do you think?
I don't know, maybe coming here 5 times a week's not too cool, I don't know. But I think just coming and hanging out for a couple of hours is okay, yeah. You know, like, it's just nice surroundings. I don't know whether you should find graveyards interesting or not.
Rick and Julia, thanks for your time. The ironic thing about the Doors' success and the way that they're worshipped today is that it doesn't entirely mirror the attitude to the band in the 60s. Sure, Light My Fire and the first 2 albums did extremely well, but by the 3rd and the 4th albums, things were starting to go amiss. The reviews were getting worse, The performances were getting unpredictable, and Morrison's drinking was proving an embarrassment within the music industry. Listen to what Morrison himself had to say in an interview in 1968.
I think we're the band you love to hate. So it's been that way from the beginning. You know, we're universally despised. I kind of relish the whole situation.
But how did that start? Why? Why are you the band that everybody loves to hate?
I think we're on a monstrous ego trip, and people resent it, you know? They hate us because we're so good.
How good were the Doors? Well, This Is Serious Mum, 20 years later, summed up an attitude towards the Doors which many shared both then and now.
Jimbo, boy, you're a crock of shit. You're a boozed, selfish thug. Why don't you give your mouth a go? And in the other hole, put a plug. By Christ, you've got a long, long way on a schoolboy's talent with words. One crappy bit of symbolism, and you're adored by an army of turds. You're a selfish, rude, arrogant prick. You're basically pretty stupid. Your mysticism's a lump of shit. And so are all the girls you've rooted.
On their fifth album, Morrison Hotel, John Sebastian from the Love and Spoonful was invited to play harmonica on Roadhouse Blues. He did so, but he later requested a pseudonym be used on the album's credits instead of his real name. In 1970, the Doors, it seems, were, to some, still an embarrassment to be associated with. Roadhouse Blues by the Doors. You're listening to Triple J, coming to you direct from the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, France. I'm Richard Kingsmill. Right now, I have John Densmore from the band, again online. John, how much of a strain was it to be in the Doors with Jim Morrison?
Well, it was very draining. On the road with Jim was pretty tough. He couldn't go more than 3 or 4 days, and then he'd get too inebriated. Still, when we got together to write the songs and record, it was still this great chemistry that I always respected.
You actually quit the group at one stage as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. I kind of threw the sticks down in the studio and looked in his eyes and said, I quit, and stormed out. He knew I was disapproving of his drinking.
Do you still have a lot of anger towards Jim and what his path ended up doing to the group?
Not so much. I mean, that was my cross to bear all throughout the band, pretty much. Well, the first few years, you know, he wasn't self-destructing that rapidly. Really, it was alcohol. He became an alcoholic.
John Densmore, online from Los Angeles today. Well, back here at Père Lachaise, as the afternoon is progressing, the crowd is building up around Jim Morrison's grave. I'm going to wander over now to a couple of guys, Stan and Eric, who are sitting on a stone next to Morrison's grave, and they look like they're having a pretty good time. Stan, when did you get out here?
I just drove into town 2 hours ago and came straight to this graveyard. Got stoned and drank beer, drank some wine.
Is this the first time for you to Paris?
Yep. First time, yeah, just cruising around Europe. Had to come down here.
And was part of the reason for you coming to Paris, Stan, to come out to Père Lachaise and the grave of Jim Morrison?
Yeah, it was definitely on the list.
What do you think?
Well, somebody stole his head, you know? Like that head, you know, used to be there.
Yeah, the bust of Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
Is it kind of disappointing not seeing it out here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to go back. I didn't even know, you know? Nobody in L.A. knows, and I'm going to go back to Hollywood and, like, get a fund to fucking get him a new head, man. Can't believe somebody ripped off his head.
So
no respect, you know? He doesn't get no respect.
So do you think the scene out here so far today, is it fairly respectful, do you think?
No, I think it's great. Yeah.
You think
Tons of people here, more than I believe, and, you know, at least he's got friends here, even if he's in a faraway place.
So you guys have all just...
You want to hit off this spliff, man? It's got hash in it?
No, I think I better keep a clear head. I've been paid by the Australian government to be out here, so...
You can cut that part out.
And so you guys have just sort of met up in the last couple of hours?
Yeah, we just met 15 minutes ago. Smoked a joint.
Talking, and I knew he was from West Coast.
I just spoke to another guy, Chris. He's also from Seattle, sitting over there.
Yeah.
He said that the Doors music in Seattle is real popular still.
Yeah, it's very commercialized since the movie came out.
Yeah, the movie, man. You know, because I live in Hollywood, and they worked on the movie, but you know, it was cool because they like redid the whole Whiskey A Go-Go like it was in the 60s, and got repainted the whole thing, got the boost back in, so it looks just like it did in the 60s now.
So Eric, you've seen the film. What did you think of the film?
I don't think it totally does justice to Jim Morrison.
A bit too commercial for you?
Oh no, it just kind of made him look like, for a non-Doors fan to go and see the movie, he would think, you know, that he was a drunken fool all the time. You know, that's what he was portrayed in the movie. But he was, I don't doubt that. But.
He did drink a lot, didn't he?
Yeah.
Don't we all?
I don't know, do you?
Yeah, I drink a lot.
I drink to relate to assholes.
You drink to relate to assholes?
That's what Jim once said.
So is it kind of you following his lead by doing that?
By drinking?
Yeah, by drinking.
No.
It's your own choice, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you think that's an aspect of his life that a lot of people follow blindly?
Yeah, could be.
So are you a fanatical Doors fan? Do you like collect everything you can?
I know every word to every song, and I don't listen to them all the time now. Kind of, you know, heard them for years and years. So listen to a lot of music. But I think he was definitely one of a kind guy. Swell guy and a real party animal.
And someone to still be admired?
Yeah, he went for it, you know. He gave it all, and too bad he died. Too bad he died so far away.
Okay, guys, thanks for your time. In a moment, we're going to have a flashback to a rare interview with the members of the Doors from 1968. But first, let's hear another track from Morrison Hotel. This is called Peace Frog. Peace Frog by the Doors. Well, ever since they released The Unknown Soldier as a single in 1968, the Doors were becoming a little more political in their songwriting. Peace Frog, which you just heard, had references to blood on the rise, and that kind of reflected the various tensions which existed in the States at the time to both the Vietnam War and also race riots. Have a listen to this. This is a rare interview on American Public Radio, not from 1968, which I said before, but it's actually dated May of 1969. The presenter is Richard Goldstein.
Okay, let's talk about the Doors. I interviewed the Doors when they were in town a few weeks ago, and I'd like to run some of that tape for you now.
I think in a way, rock concerts have always served a function. It gives a lot of people with the same station in life a chance to gather together and kind of just feel the sheer mass of them that exists, the numbers.
And that's a good point.
A lot of energy is dissipated in the concert, but there's no reason that that same communal kind of thing can't be taken out into the outside world. And ideally, hopefully, that's what a good rock concert can do. People are together inside, and they get outside into the parking lot and start driving home and get into their homes. I hope they still realize that they're together. You know, they were together in the concert, and they're together in their homes, they're together in their schools, they're together on the street. And if the people can work that togetherness and keep that thing going and working it, eventually everything's going to turn out all right.
You get a community feeling there.
Yeah.
A contact high, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as you go around the world, as you travel, what do kids look to you for?
Funny, in Europe, the kids were much more politically oriented, you know. If we said anything politically, they'd go into a furor, you know. I mean, they'd love it, you know, especially anything against America, you know. But in America, it's just the opposite, really.
I think that's why a lot of rock people have been reluctant to get involved in issue-oriented politics, make statements on the school crisis and what have you,
Well, a lot of people just aren't interested in politics at all.
It seems like they don't really come to hear us speak politics.
What do they come to hear? I mean, I know you're going to say
I think they come more for the religious experience.
From the album Absolutely Live, that's The Doors and Break On Through. You're listening to Triple J, coming to you direct from Jim Morrison's grave here at the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. Well, someone who was far too young to have seen The Doors play live is Brit from Copenhagen. She was born the year after Jim Morrison died. Brit's been in Paris for the last month. It's her first time to the city, and she's been out here at Père Lachaise every day. Brit, what have you felt by coming out here to Morrison's grave?
Well, the first time I came, you get this feeling about being close to Jim Morrison, and like you could never meet him, but you're close.
Do you think he's buried here?
Yeah, I think so.
You do think he's buried here?
Yeah.
Because that's a big question everyone brings to the gravesite.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you know? Why do you think he is?
Well, I'm pretty sure he's dead, because I don't think he could keep quiet for 20 years.
You're 19, Brit.
Yeah.
Many other of your friends in Copenhagen into The Doors?
No. I don't know anybody who listens to The Doors, no.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, that's the music of the 60s, and the music of the 90s are a lot different.
How did you get into The Doors? Where did you first hear them?
I heard People Are Strange on the radio, and I went and bought the album, and I really liked it, so I just started buying more,
So it was just by hearing that one song on the radio?
Yeah.
And then you went out and bought everything?
Well, not at first, but in a couple of months, yeah.
So what have you got? What do you own? All the records, obviously. Do you collect posters and badges and everything else?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Books, everything.
To an extent where it's fanatical, where you spend like a lot of money on it?
Yeah, yeah, well.
What do your parents think?
Well, my dad, he used to listen to The Doors, and I guess they think I'm a little bit crazy, but, they don't mind.
They don't try to stop you from spending the money?
No.
What do your friends think?
I guess they think the same as my parents, really.
Kind of a bit strange?
Yeah, because for them it's only music.
Have you been born yet, and are you alive? I touched her thigh, and death smiled.
The Hitchhiker, from the album An American Prayer. In 1977, the three remaining Doors members decided to put music to the poetry sessions which Jim Morrison recorded on his 27th birthday, just 6 months before he died. The result was that album, An American Prayer. We're going to be hearing more of Morrison's poetry in just a moment. Drew is with me now, here at Morrison's grave in Père Lachaise. Drew, you're from London. Is it your first time here?
No, it's the third time.
Third time?
Yeah.
When was the last time you were out here?
About 3 years ago. Yeah. I came in about 1981. And, I just like coming. I just like coming here, really. I find it...
We've got the Swedish jugglers who are... throwing their batons everywhere. 1981, so 10 years ago.
Yeah, I've always been into Jim Morrison's music and lyrics and that. I got it off my father, and ever since I can remember, there's always been the Doors playing in the home and everything. And I've just grown up on Jim Morrison.
Why is he important for you?
Because his lyrics and his poetry just say so much. Whenever I put any Doors music on or anything like that, he just totally takes me in, and I'm just really entranced by it. It just does something for me.
What are some of those things that Jim Morrison was saying through his lyrics and the music of the Doors?
All about trying to experience everything at least once. Fast living, drinks and drugs and whatever. all to do with hedonism.
Have you lived pretty much by his example?
I wish I could, but I've tried, yeah. I've tried. I've had a fantastic life so far.
What about his drug taking? What sort of feelings do you have about that?
Well, I feel a bit sorry for Jim, really, because for him to totally excel and totally enjoy himself, he had to resort to drinks and drugs. I mean, I can have a fantastic time and really enjoy myself without either, really. I mean, the drink helps, but as for the drugs, I don't think I'll follow Jim's example that far.
Well, as you said, you're going to be 27 soon. That's exactly the age he was when he died.
Yes, that's right. I hadn't realised that. I'm here at his graveside, and I'm 27 in about a week's time. So perhaps I shouldn't have come.
And the Doors music for you, 20 years after it was created, do you still get good feelings from it? Does it still do much for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been listening to it now for, 18, 20 years, and it's timeless.
Drew, happy birthday and thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, John Densmore, the drummer from The Doors, is standing by online again from Los Angeles. The alcohol here at Père Lachaise is still flowing. People are following Jim's example, no doubt. John, perhaps you're the best person to answer this question. Why did Jim Morrison drink?
Well, that's a big question. I mean, I think he had some sort of demons that were driving him when he was born. Apparently he was a very precocious kid. And real smart. You know, he was got through UCLA in 2.5 years. Oh, he also was a military kid who was moved around a lot. So he probably didn't get to establish friendships so much. And fame and fortune, and then he got into substance abuse, and I think all that stuff together did him in.
Do you think Jim the whole way was totally aware of what was happening to him?
Towards the end there, he was asked if he had to do it over, would he do it any differently? Jim said he would be quieter if he did it over, kind of a Zen artist working in his garden. So when he said that, I think he knew that he'd kind of past the point of no return, that he couldn't get back, that he had a disease, alcoholism.
John, thanks for your time today. Okay, a rare treat. Let's now hear a poem which Jim Morrison recorded on his 27th birthday.
Well, I'll tell you a story of da-da-da.
Richard Kingsman with you on Double J, and we're paying tribute to Jim Morrison, who died on this day 50 years ago. This is A Strange Day at Père Lachaise, originally broadcast live on Triple J on this day back in 1991.
The Changeling from the Doors album, LA Woman. Well, the lyrics of the Doors songs are the main attraction for many fans. While the Doors were releasing music, Morrison also released a book of poetry called The Lords and the New Creatures. Here's what Morrison and the rest of the Doors had to say about the band's lyrics in a radio interview from 1969.
How about in lyrics? What's the difference between a rock lyric and a poem?
Well, there's really no difference, Jim's book is the same as Jim's lyrics, I can read a page, and I've heard him sing pretty much the same things, for him. I don't think it's any difference at all. This is written poetry, and what he does on stage is spoken poetry. And spoken poetry is very effective.
I think a lot of poetry is very close to music, except when you write a poem, often you have to be in a state of mind that music can put you in with its hypnotic quality. That leaves you free to, just let the subconscious play itself out wherever it goes. I really admire poets who can get up with just with or without a microphone, just in front of a group of people and start reciting their poetry. I really admire that, but I find the music gives me a kind of security that makes it a lot easier to express myself, whereas it's, kind of hard just to read it dry.
Sure.
I wish I could. I'd like to work on that a little bit more.
Jim Morrison speaking in 1969 on American radio. Although lyrics were important to the band's success in the States, in Europe, fans had to contend with the obvious language barrier. It didn't mean they were any less successful there, and today fans still have to contend with the same problem. I have here now Sabina from Heidelberg in Germany. Sabina, why do you like the Doors' music?
I think it's mostly his voice, just his voice, but because I don't understand, most of the time I don't understand the lyrics if I don't translate them with a dictionary. So for me it's almost his voice.
So you try to translate the lyrics?
Yes, I can translate them, but it's too much work.
Right, it's too hard to do.
Yeah, it's too hard.
So you just
I understand a lot, but not everything. And if I understand everything, I often think, what did he feel when he wrote this, when he said this?
So what have you picked up, the little that you have sort of translated?
About drugs, about love. And I've read his poems. Those were very good, but I like more the music.
So his voice is the main attraction for you?
Yes, and the feeling when you hear it, it's not common. No la 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 disco music.
What about coming out here and seeing his grave? Does that change the way that you see Jim Morrison?
No. For me, this is much more real. So it's more like sightseeing because it's so long since he's been dead, and I don't believe in life after death or like some other people. So I think it's just nothing here but the stones.
Okay, Sabina. Well, thanks for your time today. When that song was originally written by Robbie Krieger, the guitarist from The Doors, it sang "Hit Me, Not Touch Me." Morrison made the change, saying there was no way he was going to sing those lyrics. You're listening to Triple J. I'm Richard Kingsmill, coming to you direct from the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. With me now, I have Sylvia Bellows from Florida. Sylvia, this isn't your first time here, is it?
We come every year to Paris, and one of our first stops is here to see Jimbo.
Yeah, why do you do that?
Actually, it's just out of respect, I guess. You know, you come to Paris and you just want to come and say hello to him, and just to let him know that he's still alive for us.
Why pay respect?
I guess for everything that he left behind, his poetry, his writing, his music, what he tried to say.
Happy days, didn't he?
You know, all the happy moments, and the poetry to me means a lot. Everything he said or tried to say.
You speak as if you actually got to see them play live and were around.
Oh, yes. I saw them in Miami. Actually, one of the last concerts they played was in Miami. That's when he had the problem with the police where they said that he supposedly took his pants off, which I, of course, did not see, and I was there. But I think that was one of the last live concerts they ever performed.
Wow, so was that the only time you got to see the Doors?
That was the first and only time I got to see them, but he used to come to Miami a lot and roam around the streets, and you could just walk up to him and say hello, and he was a very friendly person.
Did you ever do that?
Oh, yes, in Coconut Grove in Miami, he would just hang out by the park and just sit around and do his poetry.
So what memories do you have of that only time you got to see them play?
Actually, it was a very electrifying concert. It was, everything was Morrison was electrifying. He walked out on stage and you never knew really what he was going to do. He could sing or he could talk or he could just recite poetry. You never really knew. The background, the music in the background was always very tight to three other musicians, was just always excellent. But you never really knew exactly what Morrison was going to do. And that night, he mainly just talked to the audience and did a lot of poetry. So it was really very special.
Has it remained fairly vivid in your mind?
Oh yes. And maybe that's the reason why my husband and I keep coming back to Paris and to see him. And every year I always say, Jimbo, I'll see you next year again.
Sylvia, stay with me. We'll chat some more soon. But why don't we now hear an excerpt of Jim Morrison on stage that night at that infamous Miami concert?
You're all a bunch of idiots!
March the 1st, 1969, the Miami concert of The Doors, which resulted in Jim being arrested on stage. 18 months after that show, Morrison was found guilty of using profanity in public and indecent exposure. He was sentenced to 6 months jail and fined $500. He remained free, however, on a $50,000 bond, pending an appeal. Soon after that trial, the band began rehearsing material for what turned out to be their final album together, LA Woman. Well, today we've already spoken to John Densmore. Let's speak with another member of The Doors. That's keyboardist Rayman Zurich. He's also online from Los Angeles. Ray, this song, Riders on the Storm, that must have been one of the last songs that you recorded with Jim Morrison.
Riders on the Storm, yes, actually that is the last song that Jim Morrison ever sang on planet Earth, to the best of my knowledge. Certainly the last song with the Doors, and I don't think he did anything in Paris. That was the last song we recorded, and that was the last vocal that Jim did. After we put the basic tracks down, then Jim did the vocal parts, and that was his very last performance on the planet. And if you listen very closely at the end, the last verse or so, you can hear Jim is doing a whisper voice. He's whispering along with himself as he's singing on one track. He's whispering on the other, and you hear this sort of haunted whisper voice, almost a ghost-like voice. In a way, perhaps the void calling Jim Morrison back to the source, back to where he came from.
Can you remember how Riders on the Storm was written?
Yes, actually, Jim came in with some lyrics. He had 3 or 4 sets of verses and chorus, and Jim and Robbie started fooling around with it. And for some reason or another, Robbie just sort of took off on an old cowboy song called Ghost Riders in the Sky. In a way, it was created very similar to the way Light My Fire was created, a set of lyrics, an idea, and then everybody goes to work on it and molds it into a Doors song.
Does it make you sad when you hear that song today?
Oh, I always think of that, sure, of course, I do, it carries that personal memory for me of, my great friend Jim Morrison and the fact that he's now gone.
You're listening to Triple J, coming to you direct from the Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, and specifically Jim Morrison's grave. Rayman Zurich is still online from LA. Ray, did Jim like living in Los Angeles?
Oh yes, quite so. He was very American and definitely loved the city. He really hated to leave it when he finally left for Paris. He was looking forward to going to Paris, the European city of lights, and doing some poetry and some writing and just getting his head back together. But he was also a little sad about leaving L.A. Who knows, maybe he had a premonition. Maybe he knew that he would never see Los Angeles again, and he never did.
Rayman Zurich, thanks for your time. Well, there's always been a lot of speculation on where the Doors would have gone if Jim Morrison hadn't have died. A poetry album was already in the pipeline before he died, but in 1968, in this interview, Morrison reveals he also had a lot of ideas on where music could go in the future.
Rock is kind of dying out, and everyone is going back to the roots again. Some are going back into country, and some are going back into basic blues. I guess in 4 or 5 years, the new generation's music will be, it'll have a synthesis of those two elements and some third thing that'll be entire. Maybe it'll be, it might rely heavily on electronics, tapes. I can kind of envision maybe one person with a lot of machines, tapes, and electronic setups, singing or speaking and using machines.
There are no stars. Out here we is stone.
The Dub Syndicate, with their adaptation of a Morrison poem. Perhaps that's the type of music Morrison would have been singing to today if he was still alive. Sylvia Bellows from Miami is still with me at Morrison's grave in Père Lachaise. Sylvia, do you remember hearing the news about Jim's death?
Yes, very much so, sure. It was in a way, it was shocking, but in another way, it was something like, it was like when Brian Jones of the Rolling Stone died. You said, oh my God, will I be able to live without having Jim Morrison around? And then you said, well, I guess we kind of expected it. It was like, yeah, his time was coming to an end, and I think everybody knew it because he was burning himself out. And everybody knew it, and he knew it. He knew that he wasn't going to live to be too old. But, the first reaction was, oh my God, how can the world be ready to live without Morrison? No more Morrison, because there's no more poetry. No, I would have loved to see what Morrison would have been writing about now, in this time.
Have you spoken to anyone else who remembers him from seeing him?
No.
In the 60s?
No.
And you're unique. You're one of the few.
Yeah, I was there.
No, she still carries on the rock years.
I think one of his best songs is The End. This is the end, my friend, the end. I think it's just an extraordinary piece of poetry. Because that's really what he did. He wrote poetry, and then Ray Manzarek and the other guys just put it to music. But I think it was just unbelievable.
So you still listen to the Doors music?
Oh, yes, very much. Oh, yes. I like I said, I think The End is one of the best songs. Midnight Drive. I think all of them. It's just something that just, it makes you think, because it's beautiful poetry.
Just finally, Sylvia, the visit here today then for you this year, what went through your mind as you saw the grave?
Well, the first thing that went through my mind was extreme relief that I could be here again for one more year. This is my 8th year coming to see him. And that I could come back and say hello to him. See, that's basically what I do. I just stand there and I say, hey, Jimbo, I'm back. I came to see you, and I'm coming back again next year. And thank you for all the great memories.
Sylvia, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Well, I don't know about you, but at the moment I have a whole lot of things racing through my mind. One of them is the incredible power of death on the public's perception. A writer recently said that the best career move which Jim Morrison made was to die when he did. He got out before he totally destroyed all the good work of what came before. There's no denying the truth of that statement, no matter how callous or cold-hearted it appears. For instance, think about how differently we would perceive Mick Jagger or, say, Paul McCartney today if either of them had died in 1971. Death can create icons that become so powerful and so out of proportion to what the person actually achieved in their life. But it's not just death alone which has elevated Morrison so much 20 years later. Like Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin and Brian Jones all died when they were 27. Sure, they're still remembered and praised, but not nearly to the degree Morrison is. Maybe it's this place, maybe this has a lot to do with inspiring and perpetuating the myth. Père Lachaise is an incredible cemetery. It's beautiful to walk around, especially on a day as sunny as this. It also contains tombs and gravestones that are so elaborate and so ornate. And look at who's buried here. It's an incredible range of writers, painters, philosophers and entertainers. Morrison certainly is in very good company, and it's little wonder he supposedly asked Pam, just before his death, that if he should die, she should bury him here. Père Lachaise doesn't need Morrison to draw the tourists. They'd come here anyway. Yet Morrison's grave, as plain as it is still the one which attracts the attention. It attracts a group of Parisians every day. They come here to drink and smoke and listen to Doors music. It attracts graffiti like you wouldn't believe. But what if Morrison was buried in a backlot in Ohio, say? Who would go there? And what effect would have that had on the myth of Morrison and the Doors? Père Lachaise, along with Morrison's incredible charisma and good looks, his bad boy nature, his drug taking, and of course his talent as a lyricist, is the stuff that Hollywood is made of. And of course Hollywood itself has now contributed strongly to the Doors myth.
So there you go. That's what I was doing 30 years ago today, hanging out with a very random bunch of Doors fans at the site of Jim Morrison's grave in the world-famous Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. Back then, no one really knew what had happened to Morrison in 1971, hence the years of speculation and mystery. It was years later, though, in 2014, that we got as close to the truth as possible, when Marianne Faithfull talked about her drug dealer boyfriend at the time selling Morrison the heroin that was too strong for him and that did him in. It's what everyone suspected happened, but no one really has ever confirmed it until Faithfull opened up about it in that interview. Anyway, 50 years on, everyone still knows the music of the Doors and the powerful words of their lead singer. So I hope you enjoyed taking a trip with me back to 1991 in that special, A Strange Day at Père Lachaise, which we dusted off from the archives to play for you in the Funhouse on Double J.
Cancel my subscription to the Resurrect.